Though you may have already put this film behind you, Supergirl just entered its third weekend. I thought we'd talk about it. As you can see here on Box Office Mojo, it made only $3.5 million on its third weekend domestically. $3.5 million. Now that is a 58.6% drop from weekend 2 to weekend 3. And that was on top of the already very steep 76.8% drop from weekend 1 to weekend 2. Comparing this film to something like The Marvels, which was a massive bomb, Supergirl is doing much worse at this point. The Marvels made only $206 million worldwide. I don't even think that Supergirl is going to make $200 million at this rate. I don't even think it's going to gross that amount. It's a monumental flop. Now, the film had a production budget of $175 million, and I think if it continues to drop off at this rate, I doubt it's going to gross $175 million. It has currently made only $115 million worldwide. So look, the key thing here is, this is fairly obvious, hardly anyone showed up for this film. Hardly anyone went to see it. Trailers were released, TV spots were broadcast, billboards were put up and posters for bus stops. But general audiences took a look at all of that and thought, hard pass. Hard pass. Supergirl is such a huge failure. It is doing far worse than I ever expected. And I think, being generous, the film might go on to gross another $40 or $50 million worldwide. And that's probably about it. And the amazing thing is the studio, Warner Brothers, has all of these plans for more DCU projects. You know, there's a talk of a Jimmy Olsen TV series, a Mr. Terrific TV series, a Brave and the Bold movie, Swamp Thing. They want to do a Swamp Thing movie, a new Wonder Woman movie. Obviously, Clayface is coming out at the end of this year, and then Man of Tomorrow next year. But all of these projects, some of them have not started shooting yet, but they've been greenlit, despite last year's Superman not breaking even, and this year's Supergirl now being a total disaster. I think the studio should abandon all those new projects, release Clayface, finish Man of Tomorrow, release that next year, and just put the DCU to bed. Honestly, given how bland these films are, their total lack of imagination or originality, you'd wonder what drives these studios to keep making these kinds of films. Is it pride or something? Is it hubris? I could say the same thing about Disney. There's been another massive flop for Disney with the live-action version of Moana starring The Rock. This film has a production budget of over $250 million. That's without adding on marketing costs. And it grossed just $43 million on its opening domestic weekend. It made a further $52 million internationally for a worldwide total at the present time of $95 million. To be fair, Disney can celebrate their recent success with Toy Story 5, what with the fact that they now own Pixar. But those kinds of successes at the box office are not quite as common as they once were for Disney. Disney just keeps doing this thing where they do live action remakes of previously animated films they made. You know, they take their greatest hits of animated movies and they turn them into live action films with mixed results, I would say. Some of them have worked. But there's been more failures now recently than successes. So some of the failures would be Snow White and The Little Mermaid. Disney will, of course, bounce back with Spider-Man Brand New Day coming out on July 29th. But for quite some time, Disney's failures have been significant. Obviously, the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, was this guaranteed hit machine. It's now producing consistent box office bombs. And the only reason I think Spider-Man will do well is because the Spider-Man brand is very strong. It's actually stronger than the MCU brand in general. And I think Sony's influence makes a difference in terms of quality control. But getting back to Moana and the live action remake trend that Disney has been doing, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, and Lilo and Stitch did well. But there's also been quite a few failures, such as Dumbo, Alice Through the Looking Glass, Snow White, Little Mermaid, and now Moana. That being said, these films do typically pick up a good bit when it comes to merchandise and Blu-ray and DVD and on-demand sales, that kind of thing. Kids watch their favorite movies over and over. But it seems that a Disney box office hit has kind of become the exception to the rule in recent years. Coming back to Warner and Supergirl, it's not like the film financially fell off a cliff from weekend 2 to 3. It didn't exactly have a strong opening weekend, making only $37 million domestically. That's $9 million less than the Marvels did in the United States. There's so many box office failures from these kinds of studios, yet they keep churning out slop that has basically zero chance of making real money. And this is where inevitably people speculate, I think understandably so, as to whether it's all about the tax write-offs for Hollywood. Because really, you have to ask, how can they just continue to justify throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at the same types of movies over and over again? And anyone who's been paying attention, anyone who's been seeing the trends as to what works and what doesn't, what audiences respond well to and what they don't, anyone can tell you what's going to flop in advance of it being greenlit. It's fairly obvious. This is why I'm grateful for the huge box office successes of this year's 2 low-budget indie horror movies, Backrooms and Obsession. At least they booked the trend. Good, clever movies that made lots of money, deservedly so, despite being made for a tiny fraction of these big-budget Hollywood flops. Both films showed a different way. They demonstrated that we don't need this expensive, financially wasteful blockbuster franchise model of filmmaking. Yeah, think about how many films that you could make, like Backrooms, like Obsession, if you had $175 million or $200 million or even $100 million. You can make a lot of movies for that money. So there you go. That's where we are at the moment. I just wanted to talk about the state of Supergirl at the box office and this most recently released Moana. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell to be notified of future updates. Hit that like button. Share the video out there. Take care. I shall see you in the next video. Bye-bye.